Skyward Sword has been out for a couple of days now, and I do have some first impressions about this HD remake or remaster, whatever they're calling it. And I want to talk about that here and show some gameplay and talk about some of the problems I have with this remaster of the game. I didn't play the original on the Wii, so this isn't a review of comparing the two versions of the game. And this isn't going to be a review of the story and the plot and everything because I haven't played enough of it to get into that. And the game has been, released since the Wii for like 10 years now. So if you are a Zelda fan, you already know the plot and everything. You're probably already skipping through all the cutscenes just to get through the game and play it. But I do want to talk about some of the things with this version of the game and hopefully get enough out there to reach enough audience members to see if they have the same opinions as I do. One of the things I want to start with this HD remake, remaster, I don't even know what they're calling it, but one thing I want to start with is the controls. I have my iPad here with my notes to talk about what some of the problems I had with the game. And the controls is a big one, and I think that's a good place to start. Now, yes, the game does have motion controls and button controls, but the motion controls works for some things and not other things, and the button controls can be a bit difficult to grasp and a bit annoying at times. Let's start with the motion controls and talk about that. When you're using motion controls to use your sword, it works pretty well for the most part. The only problem I had is when you're trying to hold your sword up to charge the energy while you're targeting someone, it'll cause Link to kind of move with the target, and it'll cause his arm to kind of move, and then you have to recharge the sword up again. But that's a simple problem of, try either not targeting or just try to keep your hand as steady as you could to see if that works. When it comes to fighting enemies with the sword and using motion controls, it does work as it should. One of the examples is the plant monster that can only be destroyed by cutting the direction that their mouth is open, which is weird, but it works. The only problem I also had with motion controls is that sometimes it'll lose the center point that it should be at, and you have to pause the game and recalibrate by pressing, aiming forward and pressing the Y button, and it'll recalibrate the controller to, be centered again. It happens more than it should. But it makes sense in the sense of, it's motion controls. The Switch doesn't have a motion sensor like the Wii had, so it's completely reliant on the right Joy-Con's IR sensor to detect where the remote is pointing. But for the most part, on the ground, motion controls does work. However, when you go back in the sky and you're flying on your loft wing, the motion controls to steer loft wing is god-awful. I do not recommend using the motion controls to fly with loft wing. I actually had, in the beginning of the game, you have to race other characters, and I had to switch, in the middle of the race, I had to switch to button controls because the motion controls for flying was horrible. I haven't tested motion controls for aiming, but I know myself to not like aiming with motion controls. I prefer using a right stick to aim. Some people like the gyro controls for aiming. I don't know why, but at least for flying, it's not okay. And I do wish there was an option to set button controls on the ground if you wanted, or button controls in the air if you want, so you can fly with button controls, and then motion controls for the ground. But you can't choose one for the other. You're forced to do button only on both sections or motion only on both sections. I can't remember what game it was that actually did let you choose which control scheme you want for different parts of the game. I can't remember right now what it was, but there was a game that did that. So I would rather have button only in the air and motion on the ground, but you have to change it yourself each time you do that. Going on from there, when you're using button only controls, you have to hold the L button to turn the camera. The problem with that is you tend to almost immediately use the right stick on its own because that's just how gaming has been for many years. We use the right stick for the camera. And if you're using button controls, the right stick is how you use the sword. That makes sense because of certain ways you have to use the sword to cut certain things. You need to use a way to aim it in that direction, which is why the right stick can be used to aim the sword in those directions. But you also, like I said, are trained to use the right stick for the camera, so you're probably gonna be like me, where you're using the right stick to turn, and you accidentally take out the sword because you have to hold L to turn the camera. That's also a problem because unless you have a controller with back triggers, you can't run and use the camera at the same time because your run is the B button. So you would have to use one of those controllers like this one with the back buttons to do that. Some people probably just want to use a standard Pro controller and they can't do that with the Pro controller. But with the motion controls, you can. It's actually kind of the same problem too because you have to run with the B button, but you also can't use the camera. Yeah, so it is kind of dumb either way. The only fix I found is you press ZL and it'll aim the camera in the direction you're facing, but it still stops you from running when he does that. So you might need a controller with programmable buttons to run and use the camera at the same time for button-only controls. Aside from that, when you're trying to do a dodge roll in the game, from what I saw, it only teaches you how to do it with motion controls. When you're running, you shake the left Joy-Con and he does a roll. For button controls, you press the L3 button. I don't think the game teaches you that. I only found the one character who taught me, and it was with the motion controls. Maybe if I had it set for button only, it would teach me the L3, but I had to figure it out. And that's another thing about this game that I have a problem with, is that they talk about these quality of life improvements in the game, but there's certain things they don't really tell you when you need to know. Like, I'm in the first part of the game where I'm in the sky world or whatever they call it, I can't remember, and I have to find my loft wing, but they don't tell you points of interest or how to get to certain points of interest. You have to figure it out yourself completely, and it makes you waste time by exploring the entire level just to find the right path when there should be a way to tell you this is a point of interest, this is where your next objective is. When you get on the ground levels, they do kind of help you a bit more. They tell you to put a point of interest on your map, and then you just follow it. But there are certain problems of you're forcing me to search as hard as I can for certain things. It shouldn't be that hard to find. It should be able to point me to the direction, or it should have been a quality of life improvement to point me in that direction. One of the features in the game is you get to search for specific things, and then you press, I believe it's the up button on the D-pad, and it puts a first person view to try to get a compass to find what you're looking for. I'm not too keen with that feature. I think it works for the most part, but it could be better. So that's pretty much it with the controls section. I know it was a long section, so I'm going to move on to the graphics. Now, it's not a ground up remake like Tony Hawk Pro Skater or the Crash Bandicoot games or the Spyro games. It's just a HD remaster. It's not a remake exactly. And that's my problem with some of these games that we get. I don't understand the point of an HD remaster instead of doing a full remake, because there are some things in the game that doesn't look that good. There's some textures that doesn't look great at all. Character design, the characters look pretty weird. Their faces are weird. They look creepy and weird. And the only thing that games like this does is really just, make some updates to the graphical looks, and they added an extra frame rates because it's now 60 frames per second, as they claim. But the game it doesn't look god awful, but there's certain parts that doesn't look that good. Trees look like crap, certain backgrounds look like crap. Link's face looks weird. Like, Link kind of looks like Michael Jackson in some of the scenes that I've saw, and it's kind of crazy. Like, they should have. I don't know how long they've been working on this game. I don't. But you consider how the game came out on the Wii, and then you had the Wii U, and now you have Switch. And Switch has been out for, almost 5 years now? So I don't know why they didn't go with a full ground-up remake. I don't know why companies choose not to, other than the time it could take to do that. But you still have some of the same issues from the old version that may still exist in the remastered, like any glitches or the terrible motion controls for flying. It happens. It's still there. So graphics, it's not horrible, but it's not amazing either. Sound. The sound is one of the only things that I can praise. Granted, I think some of the sounds in the game are annoying, like the Spirit of the Sword Fi or Fee, whatever her name is. Her voice that they use, the weird noises she makes when she talks, it's freaking annoying. but it sounds good. The game actually has good sound quality, so I give them credit for the sound. The sound is pretty damn good. The last point I want to make for now with this whole first impressions thing is the amiibo support. Now I have about 10 amiibo figures and about 48 amiibo cards, actually 51 amiibo cards, and this new version of the game has the amiibo support. But there was a problem. I didn't test every single amiibo I had, but I tested enough amiibos to know that this game is only compatible with one amiibo, and that's the Zelda and Loftwing amiibo that not many people have because either pre-orders were a disaster or, as we found out the other day, shipping was delayed for North America. And the problem with that is until you get his blue shield, I don't remember what it's called, but it's blue shield. You're stuck with a wooden shield. There may be more in the game. Like I said, I've only played a couple hours, but the wooden shield breaks pretty quickly, and therefore you have to go back to the sky and buy it from a shop, and then go back to the ground, which is a problem without this amiibo because you have to go to the save point, fly up to the sky. You also have to land into the city in the sky, go find the store, buy the shield, jump off the island, the floating island, and fly back down to the ground. And rinse and repeat. I don't think you're able to hold more than one shield in your inventory. You might be able to. I haven't tested it myself. But that's a major problem with this amiibo because not everyone has it. And it's been a big controversy of locking that quality of life improvement behind a $25 amiibo. The other problem with that is many other games that have amiibo support supports almost every amiibo, and they do different things if the amiibo is not from the main game itself. For example, if you use the Mario 3D World amiibos for that game, you get your 3D World power-ups that were designed for each amiibo. You use any other amiibo and you get like a mushroom or something. Breath of the Wild, you have amiibos that do certain specific things like a special sword, special shield, and you have other amiibos that just give you random items to have. A game like Monster Hunter Rise, you have amiibos meant for the game to give you cosmetic armor and amiibos to use for like a lottery to win items. But this game only has support for one amiibo, and it's just the Loftwing amiibo that not many people have. A lot of people don't have it. Even Skyrim on the Switch has amiibo support, and you could get the Link gear, the tunic, the sword, and the shield, and you also get a bunch of other random items as well. So I don't understand why this game doesn't have support for those amiibos. I don't think it's going to be an update later on. It could be, but I don't think this is one of those games that Nintendo is going to update for a little while after release. Maybe a performance update or something if it needs it, but I don't think they're going to add amiibo support. This game doesn't strike me as one that gets new features added with updates. We look at a game like Monster Hunter, they get updates frequently because they're adding new monsters and new quests to play. That's great, but this game is only compatible with the one, and if you're not going to get the physical one, or if you can't get one, you have to find one on Amazon to get the card. Which Amazon, there's also a posting to have 24 Zelda cards, with one of them being the Loftwing, but you can't use the other 23 cards with this game. You can use it for Breath of the Wild and other games that support Amiibo, but this is the biggest problem with the game. The whole Amiibo, honestly, the Amiibo bullshit that they gave us. But this is just my first impressions of the game. The story seems interesting to me so far. The story was the only reason why I wanted to get this game. I was very interested in the story and finding out what happens. I am switching between motion and button controls just to see which one I'm most comfortable with. I think the button controls is more comfortable for me because that's how I've been playing games for a long time. But I do have one of these that I got from Amazon. You put your Joy-Con in as a sword to use motion controls. So I am going to try this out later and make a video about it and see if it makes the experience better or not. It probably doesn't make the experience any better, but it's just something cool I thought I would pick up. But that's my video for today. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry that it was a longer one, but I just had to get these points out to you guys. I may or may not do a full review later on. I still have a lot more to get through to make a review. But I'm Anthony Online Tech, and I will see you guys next time.